All right, guys, welcome back. We're gonna go over the text variable. All right, the text variable. Now, as you can see with the setup here, before I explain this, I'm going to designer, and I'm gonna show you guys. I created two buttons, and I created two text blocks. Okay. Uh, Now, if you go here to the left side of the screen where my mouse is at, you can see each object that I created. So you see the two text blocks and you see the two buttons. Okay, what I wanted to mention uh, beforehand is when you're labeling these objects, right? When you create them, label them to something that you can, that's in relation to the object that you created, because it'll make it easier to find the variable when you go here to the graph. When you go here to the graph, okay, it makes it easier to find it underneath the variables tab. You can find the object and you can drag it and then do what you want to do with the object, etc. Okay, so it just makes it easier to find it here in the variables. All right. I mean, you can also manually rename it here also, but you would have to remember what object this is from the designer window. So instead of going back and forth between the designer and graph, just name the object something familiar where you can find it when you go to graph. All right. Now let me get started here. Okay. So one of the buttons I created, okay, when you press that button, it's going to take whatever value that I have set here in the text block. This is for set. All right. I could type the value directly into the variable. All right. And then it's going to display in the text box widget, which is one of the text blocks that I created in the design. So when I press the button, it's going to say fluffy. All right. So when I press the button, the value fluffy is going to transfer over into the text block and show up. Okay. So let's go ahead and save that. Press play. As you can see, so let's see, click on which button was it? As you can see, when I click on the button here, it says fluffy. Pretty simple, pretty basic. All right. The value I entered into the set uh, variable. All right. That value goes directly into any object that I plug it into. All right. Now this is the get variable. Okay. Now with the get variable, you define the value over here on the left, well, on the side of the screen where it says default value, you assign the value here when you deal with the get variable here. Okay. You assign the value manually to the side of the screen. All right. Where it says default value. So let's put cotton. All right. So now the value of this get variable is cotton. So when I click on this button, this text block is going to display cotton, which is the value of this variable. All right. Save, get in the habit of compiling and then saving, even though it auto updates, but you don't want to rely on that. If something happens to the computer or powers off, or etc., you want to make sure that your progress is saved. Okay. So let me go ahead and play it. Now, when I click on this button, it's going to show this value, which is cotton, in this text block. See, cotton. All right. Yeah, that's the basics of the text. How to use it. There's many other ways to use it, and more advanced ways to use it as you go along. All right, but that's not the focus here. The focus is just to show you practical, uh, practical way to implement how to use the text variable. Okay. And as you go on, you can eventually substitute the text with, um, anything. You'll see down the line. But that's all. All right, guys. So we'll catch up again later. Hopefully, you learned something from it.